Every woman is familiar with the following situation, either because she heard about it from friends or because she experienced it herself. She is completely in despair because he hardly seems to be interested in her anymore. Whether in a long-term relationship or in a young dating phase, sooner or later she will hear at least one of the following pieces of advice from her best friends.
You two definitely need to talk about it. After all, you have to know what his intentions are.
Honey, it's obvious that he's only playing with you. Put this to an end.
No, you have to make him understand that he's just making you sad all the time.
In the last few weeks, I have done a lot of research on this topic and extensively analyzed what some women have told me. To reveal one big insight straight away, all the common advice usually only aggravates the problems that are often caused by a fear of loss. Because, unfortunately, many people have a completely wrong idea of the male psyche. But what's the real reason a man who initially showed interest in you suddenly pulls away? How should you behave in such a situation? And which mistakes do you absolutely have to avoid?
Chapter 1. The Reverse Scenario.
Before we look at the answers to these questions, I would like to ask you to think about something else for a moment. Have you ever heard, or maybe even experienced it yourself, that a man behaved very attractively and raised hope at the beginning of a getting to know each other phase, but within a very short time seemed uninteresting or even repulsive? Probably, this happened due to one of the following reasons. Through his tense and pushy manner, he wanted to bind you to him early on and demanded certainty from you. All of this seemed very excessive and hectic to you. Even your friends were shocked when you told them about this. After a short time, he confessed his feelings to you and showered you with affection, while you were still unable to return it at all. Not least because his behavior, in view of your short and superficial acquaintance so far, was far too exaggerated. He became more and more pushy, even when you backed off or politely put him in his place. It was not uncommon for him to react with accusations or to be insulted in the most unmanly way possible. Does that sound familiar to you? The experienced women with whom I spoke about this phenomenon were able to confirm it for me.
If he had just stayed cool and accepted our acquaintance as non-binding for the moment, without any of these huge expectations, then it would certainly have turned into something serious at some point.
If he had taken it easy, that I just wasn't ready for a relationship, and instead proved over time that he could handle me with confidence, then we probably would have formed an intimate relationship in the future.
Conversely, this means, if a euphoric man in love always manages to spend a nice and pleasant time with his beloved, to overlook her doubts and insecurities towards him, and to exude that he does not necessarily need the relationship with her, then, in the end, it still mostly boils down to a relationship. The reason for this is obvious. His masculine and relaxed demeanor ensures that the tender connection between the two develops gradually, unobtrusively, and without pressure. At some point, she's just ready for a relationship with him. She will come to realize that after a while. But what are the characteristics of the sovereign man? Aside from meeting her, he also had an exciting life of his own that fulfilled and inspired him, so that it became clear that his beloved was not the only focus of his thoughts and feelings. Conversely, this means that he wasn't always available for her, neither for daily, unplanned meetings nor for superfluous small talk via common short message services. The interaction was always relaxed and teasing. That means he wasn't pretending, pushing her into anything, or bothering her with his confessions of feelings. Rather, the meetings took place at eye level, without him trying to please her all the time. At no time, his behavior was harassing her, so she didn't have to feel bad or guilty about possibly hurting him, because, once again, her non-binding nature and doubts were okay for him and didn't unsettle him. If he actually behaves like this over a longer period of time, she can feel the following.
Even though he tries hard for me, he remains unwavering and true to himself. Great. In this way I can let myself go. Because now, I don't have to fool him and can feel how I want to. I don't have to think about whether I can upset or hurt him with my behavior all the time.
Many happy women I spoke to beforehand could only agree with this. It was the same with them. But the point is, oftentimes they suddenly fell in love with their sovereign admirer and realized it at a certain moment, namely, when they suddenly caught themselves missing him more and more between the dates. But why am I telling you this long story? What does it have to do with your own situation? That's what the next chapter is about.
Chapter 2. The Two Faces.
If you're currently in the awkward situation of your boyfriend or crush seeming distant, different than he used to be, or not being as engaging, then the following explanation might help you understand his behavior. While a woman is usually in a testing phase at the beginning of the getting to know each other, in order to unconsciously test her admirer for a certain period of time, and only later enters a phase of euphoria and love. With men, this process often runs exactly the other way around. This means that, only after he has completed the intense euphoric phase, a testing phase begins in his subconscious, which can sometimes last a little longer. During this time, for example, he takes a very close look at whether you can stand on your own 2 feet, cultivate your hobbies and friendships, pursue your professional goals, and don't let yourself be unsettled when he pulls away and needs some distance from you and your relationship. Whether you are consistent with him when he treats you unkindly or roughly, especially by walking away from him in such situations, because that is exactly what his subconscious longs for. A woman who can show him his limits in a feminine way and thus also influences his personality. Whether you can be an asset to his life that he needs to strive for. A woman who is driven by inner forces and who can also sometimes relax and let him go. Simply a woman who does not desperately need him around her all the time and is willing to sacrifice anything and anyone just to fit him into her wishful thinking. So, that also means, keep calm and don't let yourself be unsettled if things somehow went better before, because, to finally make that clear, then you can very well assume that he was already genuinely interested in you, but your potential for him has yet to prove itself. And you definitely don't take care of that by constantly being available and always wanting to spend time with him. By no longer maintaining other contacts and no longer pursuing your personal interests. By following him all the time while he can do whatever he likes. By listening to your best friend's bad pieces of advice. Because then, at some point, he will realize that you are emotionally completely at his mercy, that your carelessness at the beginning has fizzled out. And the stupid thing is, once it gets to that point, he'll look at your relationship completely differently. From his perspective, he will not have changed, but you. It will then be entirely up to you to rebuild the connection to him. Only you will have to make sure that he starts trying to get your attention again. How exactly? Let me know in the comments if you're interested in this. Maybe then I will make a new video on this topic very soon. Cheers!